You're listening to the best of the Mantour Guide podcast as we gear up for the fall, winter, and into the new year. Enjoy the summer as well as this amazing episode from the past 12 months.
Mantour Ministries presents the Mantour Guide podcast. We may talk about football. We could mention bacon. We might reference Rocky movies. We'll probably discuss the Mantour conferences, but we'll definitely talk about how to grow in our walk with God. Here's your host, the Mantour Guy, Jamie Holden.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Mantour Guide podcast. Jamie Holden here. I'm so happy to be here with you once again this week. Thanks so much for joining us. Well, this week I am so happy to be joined by a special guest to discuss a topic that I feel so passionately that is important for God's men to know about, to be aware of, and to take a stand against. It is one of the most heinous things that is invading our society. It breaks my heart so much, and I want to confront it head on this week. What am I talking about? I'm talking about sex trafficking and sex slavery. This is such a horrible industry, guys. Human trafficking is modern day slavery. It's the use of force, fraud, or coercion to obtain some form of labor or commercial sex act, and it still exists today. Did you know that 40.3 million people live in slavery worldwide? 403,000 people live in slavery in the United States, and 540 victims were identified in the state which I live of, Pennsylvania, in 2019. I got those stats from the website of our guest today. I've invited Jordan Pine, who is the founder of the Greenlight Operation, to join us today. She's going to be sharing with us what we need to know as men of God about this horrendous industry, and more importantly, what we as God's men can do to fight against it. Operation Greenlight is a nonprofit organization that was started by my home church, Christian Life Assembly. Because so many of our Sundays are spent ministering in other churches, I honestly had no idea that our church had started this ministry and that Jordan has now made it into an independent nonprofit. I just came across on the church's website, and because I've wanted to address this topic for so long in the podcast, I immediately reached out to Jordan and asked if she would be a guest today, and she graciously agreed. So I am personally excited to hear what Jordan shares with us today, so I personally can learn more. So Jordan, welcome to the Mantour Guide podcast.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Well, for any of the guys who are listening who may not know what it is, what exactly is sex trafficking?
Yeah, sex trafficking or human trafficking is the buying and selling of another human being. And so as we boil it down, it's essentially modern day slavery. And one of three things is typically present in a case of sex trafficking. It's force, fraud, or coercion. So even in that language, we're seeing it's somebody who's being forced to do something against their will. And specifically for sex trafficking, it would be a forced commercial sex act. And it's a very heinous, horrific crime that is growing at a very, very fast rate. And in fact, today, there are more slaves today than any other point in human history.
Wow, it breaks my heart to think about it. And you only ever hear about this topic around the Super Bowl for some reason in men's ministry, but guys need to realize this is all the time. It's not just a Super Bowl thing. It's something we have to be aware of all the time. So who are some of the people who get trapped in this industry? Are they grown women? Are they children? Are they teens?
Yeah, it truly, it's such a variety of individuals. So in America, the average age of entry is just 15 years old. Wow. Worldwide, the average age of entry is 12 years old. So while that is the average age of entry, you have people that are aging up through the industry. You'll have individuals that are younger that are getting trafficked. We have heard and been a part of cases of individuals involving minors younger than 10 years old. And for others, we've worked with organizations and they have been working with individuals that are in their 50s. And so really it depends, because as we know, buyers come from every background, there are different preferences, and traffickers play to that economy of supplying individuals. Typically it is younger women, but again, it can be anybody.
And for the guys who don't know exactly what we're talking about, when we say like sex trafficking, basically it means that these people are being put in slavery and they have to do sexual things for money for other people. It's horrible. It is cruel. But I just want to make sure and everybody knows what we're talking about here, just how cruel this really is.
Yeah.
And it's not just an overseas thing. So many often you hear about this industry and you think it's overseas in third world countries, but it's not, right? It's here in the USA.
Right, that's correct. It is here in the United States, and it's thriving in the United States. In fact, human trafficking, it happens in every nation and it happens in every community. So even in our rural communities that we might think are small towns that are safe, secure, and there's no way anything like that could possibly happening is the mindset. The sad reality is that whether it's sex trafficking or labor trafficking, or there are actually 25 different types of human trafficking, typically in every community, there is some form of sexual exploitation that is taking place, such as sex trafficking. And it's sad. In fact, recent statistics, the most recent statistics we have are from 2020 from the National Human Trafficking Hotline. Majority of cases involve family members selling their relatives, and it involved individuals that the person knew that were the trafficker exploiting them. So it's not necessarily, schemes that are happening at the borders that folks often think of. It's not the movie Taken, but it's a far more relationally manipulative type of crime, which is what makes it difficult to detect and report. But yes, it is happening here.
It's so heartbreaking that the people you're supposed to be able to love and trust the most are doing that. That's just, oh, wow.
Yeah.
I did not realize that. Whenever I hear it, I always think of things like you said, the border or Taken or things like that. I didn't realize that was actually happening as well. Wow. So how did you get involved in this ministry? Like, what prompted you to get started?
Yeah, so when Greenlight Operation launched in 2018, it was the result of having done an event with the A21 campaign, incredible anti-trafficking group that does work worldwide. And they host an event called the Walk for Freedom. And so we hosted that in 2017 in Harrisburg at our capital. And we had hundreds of individuals attend that saying, hey, we want to take a stand for freedom and be a voice for the voiceless. And so simply an awareness event that took place that day. Well, following that event, we had many individuals that were connecting with the pastoral team at Christian Life Assembly, that were reaching out to myself and my team saying, hey, what can we do beyond a singular day in the year to combat this issue? Because if it is, the fastest growing criminal industry worldwide, if it's happening in all of our communities, we should be deploying people to do more, essentially. And completely agreed and resonated with that. It sent our team essentially on a quest to find, hey, what are the resources currently available to victims of human trafficking? And what are ways that we can get involved in preventing this issue, as well as serving survivors? And we realized in digging into that, while there were some responses and some services available, they were extremely limited considering the number of victims. And so to even give perspective, in Pennsylvania, if even half of the survivors of human trafficking were served and were able to find some form of housing that would be like emergency housing or long-term housing, less than half would actually be able to have a bed. And so there is just such an incredible shortage of services and of beds available to those that are being rescued. And so that realization really caused us to pause and say, okay, we need to do something. And so it became the response of the local church that launched Greenlight Operation. And we started as a ministry within Christian Life Assembly and we have a threefold a process of threefold approach of how we want to combat this issue. And that's prevention, collaboration, and restoration. So we do a lot of awareness and education throughout the community. We train law enforcement. We've trained healthcare professionals on the issue and continue to do so, collaborate with many other organizations and volunteers and even state legislators as we are working to reform some state policy in the realm of human trafficking. But we're also in the process of opening a restoration home to serve women that have been sexually exploited through human trafficking. And so all of that, simply it was one event these individuals coming out to that, and the people that were prompting and saying, we want to do more, we want to get involved, and what does that look like, that then prompted the launch of Greenlight Operation. And we were so grateful for our church family that rallied behind that. And we've since become an independent organization, still very closely connected with our church. But yeah, it was the people saying we want to do more.
Wow, that's great. And why did you choose to name Greenlight Operation?
Yeah, so Greenlight Operation, we exist to turn red light districts into green light districts, which are places that are free from sexual exploitation and human trafficking. And so we really wanted to encompass that mission of turning those red light districts into green light districts. So that's where we came up with the name Greenlight Operation.
That's great. I love that. Well, what are some of the things that you guys do to help combat this trafficking?
Yeah,
Practical
so
things. Like some of the
sorry,
just the practical hands-on things that you do so people can know what's
yeah.
going on.
Yeah. So what we do is right now we're doing a lot of prevention in education. So we're in school districts, training schools. We've had opportunities to be on webinars and do trainings in high schools where we're able to reach every single classroom within a high school. We've trained the faculty and the staff,
Wow.
as well as hosted opportunities for the parents and community members to learn about the materials that we're bringing forward to discuss it. And the prevention side is so incredibly important because people will not get involved with an issue they do not know exists. And so if people still have, that mentality and believe that it's happening in other nations and other countries, and it's not happening in the United States, let alone, in places like Camp Hill or wherever somebody is, that they would say, hey, this is my safe community, this isn't happening. If we have that mentality, individuals will not be recognized, reports won't get made, and rescues won't be able to take place. And so we very firmly believe in those prevention efforts, and we collaborate with law enforcement to enhance the training and opportunities available there for police to better recognize it, as there's still such a gap even in training that has been provided to law enforcement. And so we partner with them in that, and we have many eager partners that are just doing incredible work. So we're very excited for them even taking that training to their colleagues. And so prevention and education, big portion of what we do. Collaboration, we want to know the other players in the field. We want to know who is providing services to victims of human trafficking. How can we help support the work that they're doing and promote that? And then how can we all, fill the gaps where we're seeing gaps in services? And so collaboration is extremely important, as we truly believe we're better together. With an industry like human trafficking that is considered the fastest growing criminal industry worldwide, it's one of the top grossing criminal industries. There's a lot of money being made in it. We need to partner together, and we truly believe we're stronger together. And then that restoration home piece is something we're in the process of launching. We're still in the fundraising stages for this restoration home, and it will house 5 to 8 women at a time and provide long-term restorative care that would involve things like trauma therapy and life skills coaching. The survivors within our care would be able to continue in education if that's something that they desire. But the ultimate goal is that after they leave our program, they'll be able to live an independent and sustainable lifestyle. And so while we want to prevent cases of human trafficking through education, we also want to serve and help in the restoration process with those victims. And so that is something right now we are fundraising for. We're currently in the process of writing a restoration program and attending an institute, an incredible nationally acclaimed institute that we were accepted into, that's going to partner with us so that we can have a trauma and survivor informed program released and ready to go.
You said 2 things there that I really love. Number one, I love that you said you saw this need and you did something. I love when people don't just say, oh, that's so sad that it's happening, but you actually take action and you're attacking. I love that attitude. And that you're working with any other ministries doing the same thing. My biggest pet peeve in Christianity today is when ministries of the light won't work together. That it's my ministry, we do this, you're not as good as me. Why? We're all on the same team. We're working for the same goal. Let's work together. I just love that you said that. That's such a great attitude to have. I really appreciate that so much.
Thank you. Yeah. We truly cling to that and believe that it can get territorial at times, but it's something that we are actively working to break down those walls because it really is important for us to work together.
It is important. It gets into men's ministry sometimes. Some guy once asked to speak somewhere. He says, well, I don't know if that'd be a conflict of interest. I'm like, what is the conflict of interest? We're all serving God. We're all reaching men. It's a pet peeve. But anyways,
Yeah.
that's a totally different topic for another day. Well, guys, I can't wait to hear more about Greenlight Operation. We're going to continue with Jordan right after the break. Guys, we'll be back with the remainder of this message right after the break.
I know you're gonna dig this.
Like what you're hearing? Head over to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Thanks.
Guys, did you know you can watch all the sessions from the 2022 Ignition Mantour conferences for free? Whether you watch them on your own or use them in your church's men's ministry, they are available to view on our Mantour Ministries YouTube channel as well as at mantourministries.com/2022 conference videos. Check out these session videos as well as the session videos for past mentors for free. They are great resources to help you grow in your walk with God. So take advantage of these free conference sessions today.
The Mantour Guy Podcast, helping men grow in their walk with God.
Will you be a ride or die man of God? This is the challenge contained in the pages of our new book for men. Ride or Die examines the lives of 10 men who set an amazing example of extreme loyalty to God. No matter what he asked or what circumstances they faced, they always fist pumped and said, "Let's do this, I'll ride or die with you." Each chapter challenges us to follow in their footsteps and accept the call to be men who are wholeheartedly devoted to God. Filled with practical applications for today's culture, this book will inspire you to say, "I'll ride or die with God."
Order your copy today at mantourministries.com. Don't forget to visit iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Thanks.
Guys, have you liked and followed Mantour Ministries on Facebook? If not, this is the perfect time to do it. We really stepped up our social media game to bring you content Monday through Thursday throughout the year. You can watch short video clips from the Mantours, be inspired by quote images, and stay informed of everything happening at Mantour Ministries simply by liking and following us on Facebook. So take time today, go to Facebook and search for Mantour Ministries and like and follow us. Do it today, guys.
Welcome back to the Mantour Guy Podcast.
Welcome back, guys, to continue our discussion with Jordan Pine, the founder and CEO of Greenlight Operation. So thanks so much for being with us and welcome back here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Okay, so what's the biggest obstacle that you are facing with this work that you do?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest obstacle that we've been facing is simply lack of awareness that the issue of human trafficking is happening here, not just in Pennsylvania, but throughout the nation and in our communities. And so again, people will not get involved with an issue they do not know exists. And so that awareness piece is so vital to not just being aware, but then turning that awareness into action and having that proper education on human trafficking, then helps too in the response and what that looks like. We've seen many well-intended individuals that they want to get involved, they want to do something about human trafficking, but have had some misinformation and end up putting themselves and victims in dangerous situations. And so it is something that people can get involved in, even simply in just even consumerism, as far as ethical consumerism. So that is something, as we consider even everyday practices that are impacting this. What are we consuming as a person? You know, everything from the clothing we purchase to even some of the things we might be consuming, like pornography. Are those things that we are actively filtering and aware of, and the impact that it's having on other people? That is something, even just from a starting point for folks that are saying, I want to get involved with this. How can I practically combat this issue of human trafficking? You know, consumerism and what you're purchasing or consuming is truly one of those first steps. And then continuing the conversation and keeping that going and actively engaging with those conversations is vital. But again, so much of that goes right back to awareness and people just not understanding it. So that's why we at Greenlight Operation strongly emphasize, our seminars that we'll host. We put research on our website and have blogs that are put out there. Our seminars are no cost, and we even do one-on-one consultations. And we've worked with churches, and even the response of pastors and security teams and youth ministry workers, as far as if a case were to come forward in those settings, are you prepared to handle that? Because many victims have been to church at some point during their victimization. And, are they aware of the help and resources available to them? And if they were to come forward in that type of setting, whether it's prayer at the altar or, in small group discussion or something like that, are they equipped to do that? So that again leads to awareness, but then again, our team does have resources to assist in those settings as well. But it can sometimes just be those practical first steps of just even simply saying, I want to know more about it. That makes such a big impact.
Something you just said there really jumped out to me, that men don't ever stop and think about it. We, as men's ministry, you're constantly dealing with men in pornography. And in a way, pornography is contributing to sex trafficking and human trafficking industry. And men, if they think about it that way, maybe it would help them break the bondage that they're in, because they do go hand in hand.
They truly do. Pornography is often used as even a tool for grooming victims. Again, sometimes young children, you've got 10, 12-year-olds that are being forced to watch pornography because their trafficker is saying, this is what men want, and you need to perform like this and do this. And so, from it being used even as a training tool for victims, all the way to victims themselves will oftentimes be filmed in those situations. And porn sites aren't putting out there, hey, this person is they've consented to this. And there's been even a lot of backlash on major porn companies as well because of that, because of exploitation that is being put out there, and victims that are saying, they did not have my consent. This is me being raped. Like, take it down. And they're not, because money is being made off of it. And so the reason that's happening is because people are viewing it, and they're clicking on those videos, and they're paying for that type of stuff. And again, it's just, you don't know simply who is involved in those videos and that content. You don't know the story there, or the abuse and the trauma, and even too, just how the whole industry is even being used to groom individuals into this. It definitely plays. I could go on and on about the impact of pornography and human trafficking, but they definitely go hand in hand.
They really do. And it's something men need to think about. So many men are like, I want to be free. I want to be free. I can't break free. Well, that should be motivation just there and then to break free, because it's just so degrading to women, and it's horrible. What have you found is the number one way people get trapped in this industry, so that guys can kind of identify situations that may be red flag, or what's the number one thing to watch for?
Yeah, the number one thing with the pandemic, a lot of trafficking has moved online. And so, number one thing either to look for, or even for those within your sphere of influence to have communication about, would be healthy technology usage. If you're a parent, or if you're a family member and you've got, nieces, nephews, have conversations about healthy technology usage. I think it's pretty unrealistic to expect that technology won't be used by teenagers, or even, children as young as elementary school, with the way society is going today. But let's have conversations about, what does healthy usage look like? Set up monitors and boundaries on those phones, and do that. I think that is such an important thing. Then, as far as signs and what to look for, recruitment happens in a variety of ways, through relational manipulation. It can happen through online solicitation, where those conversations are happening online with individuals. And so I would say simply, look for potential signs of somebody, displaying signs of any type of abuse. Is there something that just seems off there? Does it seem like this person doesn't have a lot of say in what they're able to do? And if you ever suspect that, we do not encourage you to be the one rescuing. I think there's a tendency to have that vigilante, like, I'm a superhero, I'm gonna go in and swoop in and help rescue. But we still encourage, call the police, call the National Human Trafficking Hotline. They're an incredible resource. And if anything is ever suspected as far as a case of human trafficking, contact them and talk to them. They're the national resource that is not just connected to law enforcement, but other services available. And without going into an entire seminar of signs to look for, I check out our website. We have signs of human trafficking posted there, as well as information on our blog if you want to check that out as well. But just being aware and being willing to report things when they seem off, they go a long way.
And guys, you hear me say every week we talk about Covenant Eyes and the importance of having that protective software on your phones, on your family's phones, to help keep them safe. And Jordan just mentioned that as well, that you need to be protecting teens and young kids online. And like we tell you every week, sign up for it. The little bit of money it costs is worth the protection it provides for you, and most importantly, your family. It is such a great resource. It's what we recommend here at Mantour Ministries. There's other ones as well, but that's the one we work with. And like I always say, use the code Mantour, get a month free. But it fits into today's discussion because it helps keep your kids safe online. It's so important. So little plug there, but can you share some of the testimonies, some of the hallelujah stories from what you guys have done and how you've helped people?
Yeah. So one that always sticks out to me, a lot of people might often say, because we don't have the restoration home, what are you able to do for survivors, and what does that look like? And so a couple examples would be, we had a sergeant that reached out to us. He's actually serving in an area that's considered a hotspot for human trafficking. And he reached out and said, "Hey, I would love some training on this. Can you provide just a one-on-one consultation here?" And so I went in and had a discussion with this gentleman, and he'd been in the force for about 10 years. And when I asked him, I said, what does training look like for you for human trafficking, and where is your knowledge on this issue, just to get a starting point to begin the conversation. And he said the extent of his training was from the movie Taken. And again, folks, this is somebody who has been in the force for 10 years that has that is in a hotspot for this region for human trafficking. That the extent of training was a movie Taken. And honestly, I appreciated his vulnerability because it allowed us to really have a genuine conversation and really start from square one. And after we had our consultation, he said, "You know what? There's a business that went in not long ago." He said, "I think it might be an illicit massage business, could potentially be a front for human trafficking based off of some of what we had discussed." And he said, what are some things I can do to essentially, check that out? So we talked through some of the procedures, and he followed through on that. We saw him then a couple of weeks later. And he said, "Jordan, I'm so excited to report." He said, "We checked out this business." He said, "There really wasn't much at first, but we did another we did another look through with our codes enforcement officer. We went through and did another search." And he said, "We ended up finding that there were about 20 women that were being trafficked through this massage business." And he said, "Not only that, but we found that this massage business was actually linked to several others throughout the state of Pennsylvania and all the way up through New York." And he said, "We've been able to collaborate with other state police officers as well as federal agents." And he said, "There has been a massive bust that is now taking place throughout multiple massage businesses that were trafficking women through that." And so we don't always get to hear those stories about how, a seminar or consultation, led to an action. But that was just such an incredible moment of realizing that because this gentleman was trained, because we had that time to sit and talk through what he could do within his role to combat this issue. And then the key part is he took action on it. We saw women rescued, probably over 100 or so women that were rescued, considering the number of massage businesses that were discovered. And so just absolutely incredible. And we'll have people even come forward to us during our following our seminars that we've done in public settings and say, "You just explained my relationship. I knew I wasn't in a healthy relationship. I knew this wasn't right or normal, but I never fully recognized that I was actually being trafficked. And help, what are the resources available? Can you help us?" And we've had just so many moments like that. We even will brief the host that's having us to say, hey, be prepared. Reports may come forward. And so here's kind of what we would recommend then. So again, in the training and in education that we're doing, that's such a big piece. And we're working right now, even with our state police here in Pennsylvania, as well as some of the victim services at our state capitol, to help them understand even who are the service providers within our state that are actively working to serve survivors of human trafficking. Because during the pandemic, many agencies were shut down or had to change the way they provided services. And so right now, police are kind of like, hey, we don't know who to go to once we have a victim. We don't want to keep them here in jail, but that's the only roof over their head right now. Can you help us find who some of these service providers are? And so they've been coming to us. We've been able to work through and provide a landscape analysis of who those players are, and providing those practical resources so people are getting connected to services throughout our state. So just a couple of examples. And when we have that home up and running, I'm sure we will have so many more as we walk with women through their healing process there.
Oh, I love that. I can't wait for the home to open so you can just have the facilities you need to help the women. And that's going to be so great. I'm looking forward. I'm excited for you guys. I feel excitement inside of me listening to you talk about this. That's just so great. So how can the men who are listening today, what can they do to help combat this industry? What's some practical steps? Listening to this and they hear it and they're like, wow, this is awful. I want to get involved. What can they practically do? Because like you said, you don't want them going Rambo and doing anything like that in their own. So what's some guidance here we can give to the guys?
Yeah, I would say, read up on the issue, look at reputable sources. So Greenlight Operation, we have information posted on our website. Exodus Cry is an incredible faith-based organization that's working to combat sex trafficking and sexual exploitation. And they have a really great podcast I'll plug as well that focuses specifically on human trafficking. And they also have a lot of research on their website to take a look at. But I'd say step number one, familiarize yourself with the issue, do some education on it, and then start having the conversation with people within your sphere of influence. So, around the dinner table, have those conversations of here's what this looks like. What can we as a family do to get involved? And maybe that might look like supporting a local organization that's fighting human trafficking, and it's helping volunteer at some of their events. Maybe it's, looking at, okay, what do we consume as a family? Meaning, have we ever considered where our clothing is coming from? Have we ever considered where the food on our table is coming from? Is it being ethically sourced? And looking at that, because there are people that are being exploited, in these industries, in sweatshops, on farms and things like that, where it is not being ethically sourced. These individuals are not getting paid for the work that they're doing. And so what we are buying could be playing into human trafficking. And so when we think about capitalism, even it's supply and demand. If suddenly demand is dropping and people are saying we're not going to be purchasing this stuff that is not ethically sourced, then we will see that, hey, you know what, they're going to improve some of those work conditions. Anyway, so those are a couple of things. Book a seminar if you're interested in even hosting a Greenlight Operation, whether it's at your church, in your small group, or even in your workplace. We would love to connect with you and do that. We do not charge for our seminars. Unless we're traveling a long distance, we may need some travel fees that are covered, but we can also do online seminars. So we don't want anything to prevent you from hosting Greenlight Operation to do a training on that. We'd be happy to connect with you there. But I think keeping the conversation going is one of the most important things, because this issue has thrived in silence and it's thrived in darkness. And it hasn't been until recent years that it's truly being discussed. And because of those discussions, because of this getting pulled into the light, we're seeing solutions coming forward. We're seeing people that are saying, I want to get involved, compared to, 20 years ago, when it wasn't even discussed. People didn't even really know what human trafficking was. And for those that maybe knew what it was, there was often the stigma of if you talked about it, you were going to get trafficked. And so that's not true. We encourage talk about it, have conversations, because that's going to grow awareness and it's going to grow responses then as well. So again, and if you want to get involved or connect with Greenlight Operation, please reach out to us. Or even if you want to play a part in funding the restoration home, that would be a significant piece as well to that process.
So how can men get in touch with your ministry if they want to have a seminar, or if they want to just become supporters? I know every ministry always needs financial support. It's always something ministries need. How can men connect with you guys?
Yeah, you can connect with us at greenlightoperation.org. We have a contact form on there that you can fill out, or you can reach out to us on social media. Greenlight Operation is on Instagram and Facebook if you want to reach out to us there as well, and we can connect with you in those settings there too.
So guys, you heard that. Take advantage of this great resource. Help them do what God has called them to do. And I'll be honest with you, I lived in the country my whole life. I didn't know this even existed in America. I was watching an episode of Hawaii Five-0 on CBS, and they did an episode on human trafficking. And it just broke my heart watching it and realizing that this actually goes on. And that was an eye-opening experience for me. Maybe for men today, this podcast is their eye-opening experience where they're realizing, I had no idea that this was even happening. So I just want to thank you so much for giving us your time today and sharing this. And thank you for what you do. It is so important. It is so necessary. So just thank you so much.
Yeah, well, thank you. It was great to be here with you today. And and thank you to everyone who's been listening. We hope to connect with you at some point if you have any questions.
Right. Well, guys, you've heard Jordan's passion. You've heard her heart for defeating this industry. I hope your eyes were open and you understand the need better. And I pray that you will take action. So like I said, Jordan, thanks so much for giving us your time this week. I appreciate it. Keep up the fight. Don't get discouraged. Keep pushing through. You guys are doing an amazing work.
The Mantour Guy's final thought.
I want to encourage every listener today to take today's podcast seriously. Every day, women and children are being forced into slavery and the sex trade. And this is it's heartbreaking. It must be fought against. Jordan has shared with you today what you as a man of God can do to fight this industry. Now it's time to take action. I encourage you to seek God's direction and follow his prompting, what he wants you to do, and then obey him and do it. I know as with all ministries, Greenlight Operation can always use more financial supporters. Maybe God would lead you to bring them in, Jordan and her team, into your own men's group or church to help educate you more on this topic and develop a battle plan. But after hearing this podcast, I truly believe inaction cannot be an option, guys. You must take action. We must fight against this horrible, horrible industry. As men of God, we must help protect women and children, do everything we can to make sure that sex trafficking ends. So guys, take action. And I just want to once again, thanks Jordan for giving us your time today to help us be more aware of what's going on. Well, guys, we are out of time for this week's podcast. As we wrap up today, I want to thank you for giving me your time today to listen. We'd love it if you took a second to share this podcast to your social media. We also love if you give a 5-star rating and review. Every time you do that, it helps more men be able to find us in their podcast searches. Also, remember, we are right in the middle of our 2022 Ignition Ride or Die Mantour conferences. Things are started off. We're going great. We're going strong. If you have not been to your local Mantour, visit mantourministries.com today to learn more about the dates, locations, the speakers. You do not want to miss what God is going to do this year through Mantour Ministries conferences. Make sure you're at your local conference. So visit mantourministries.com for more information. But guys, once again, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time on the Mantour Guy Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Mantour Guy Podcast. Be sure to visit mantourministries.com to learn more about our books, men's ministry resources, and our Mantour conferences.
Hey guys, Jamie Holden here, and I want to tell you that God is moving in our prison systems. And Mantour Ministries, well, we're on the front lines, and you can help. We are giving inmates our books and resources, and guys, the testimonies we're receiving back have been amazing. One person reported that they had 30 men gathering, and 25 of them were delivered and set free from anger. Another shows how the men are weekly working together through our books and how men are growing spiritually. They're starting to have devotions and have prayer time and Bible reading in their individual lives, and they're growing. Guys, I could go on and on. Chains of bondage are being broken among our inmates. You can help us reach even more hurting men inside our prison systems when you become a monthly financial partner with Mantour Ministries. You can become a partner with us by going to mantourministries.com/partner and clicking on the Give Online button. Guys, together we can continue reaching men in our correctional institutions with the life-changing truth of the gospel.
The Mantour Guy Podcast, helping men grow in their walk with God.